Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a watch that launched at SIHH 2013. This is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Deep Sea Chronograph Cermet. It is all those things. Part of the Deep Sea collection inspired by the 1959 E857 diving alarm. This is a watch that's more of a what-if watch. That is, what if the deep sea had been built as a chronograph? And what if it had been built in Cermet? Let's talk about what this Cermet is. It is a 40-micron ceramized layer on top of an aluminum core, so it's very light, but it's also as scratch-resistant as ceramic without the fracture and shatter susceptibility of ceramic. So, 44 millimeters in diameter by 14.5 millimeters thick. It is 51.5 millimeters lug-to-lug across the wrist with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. What appears to be a rather exotic aftermarket strap is actually a JLC factory strap. More on that in a moment. It's a good look, and it adds a little bit of color to this watch. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, I think this is really the limit, frankly. Because the watch is so broad across the wrist, it's much bigger than even the tribute to Deep Sea modern re-edition of the E857. This is a watch that needs a 16 centimeter circumference wrist or larger just because it is so broad, but it is feather light, being all aluminum and sapphire. A very light watch on the wrist and not that thick, truth be told. Taking a look at the strap, this is a design originally created for the Master Compressors and Master Compressor Extremes back in the 2000s. A very thick-cut, large rectangular scale alligator leather strap with a double stitch. The double stitch is normally white. Here it's a lovely turquoise, adding color to a watch that's largely white and black two-tone. Now you can see it is a high-quality piece of extreme thickness with bolstering to give it volume. A lot of leather went into making this strap. You can see it is a brand new Jaeger-LeCoultre factory strap, gator on the top, calfskin on the bottom, and we have a little Cermet buckle to match the case. You can see it is JL signed. Now the case has a shape that's essentially the original deep sea diving alarm scaled up. So we have that vintage look with a thin mid case, minimal beveling, and squared off lug ends. It's all of a matte media blasted finish with the exception of some of the external visible metal parts that are a combination of polished and satin finished. We have a crown that is polished and sharply knurled. That's true to the original deep sea, but this quadrille or quartered cut, which features cross-hatching on the chronograph pushers. This is actually something drawn from the JLC Polaris diving alarm of the late 60s. This wasn't a feature of the E857 back in the early 60s and the late 50s. We have a diving bezel, which is something the original did not have. JLC's original concept was to put a Memovox movement in a dive watch, and you would just set the alarm for the time when you knew you needed to surface. Well, this is a chronograph, and it doesn't have an alarm, so it makes sense to have a unidirectional rotating dive bezel. It has a ceramic insert for scratch resistance. You can see the watch has plenty of luminescence, absolutely no problem in that regard. And we even have the first 15 minutes loomed on the bezel, which is always key for diving purposes. Now you can see that there is a loomed constant seconds indicator, so you can tell if the watch is running even in the dark, but there's more. Taking a quick look at the dial, you can see we have all applique rhodium-plated polished indices, which is a nice upscale look. The original dial would have been printed, so this looks like a modern watch in that regard. There's a granular texture to the dial, and we have sunken sub-registers for chronograph hours, chronograph minutes, and constant seconds. There's an operating indication up at 12 o'clock, so you know whether or not the chronograph is supposed to be operating. So, for example, if you see this and it's not turning, that means your watch is not running. You can reset and stopped is white. Running, it's almost like a diver down flag, is one half red and one half white, and then stopped is red. So that is your operation indicator for safety. On the reverse side, you can see part of the inheritance from the original deep sea diving alarm, the picture of the skin diver with the spear, and inside we have a movement protected down to 100 meters. It's the JLC manufacturer chronograph caliber 758, unidirectional automatic winding with ceramic rotor bearings, 2 mainspring barrels, 65-hour power reserve, stop seconds function, 4 hertz beat rate, 37 joules. It has a rugged free-sprung balance that's adjusted using masses on the balance wheel. It's both more shock tolerant and more precise to adjust. And it has a a vertical clutch and column wheel tandem. So you have a vertical clutch. So if you look at the chronograph seconds hand, there's no jump when it starts. With a lateral clutch, you get jump when the chronograph seconds hand starts here. There's no play in the system, there's no jump. Further, because of the vertical clutch, you can leave it running on a full-time basis with no additional wear and tear to the movement. The column wheel ensures that you have a very crisp feel to the movement. And the use of two barrels wasn't strictly necessary to get a 65-hour power reserve, but it was necessary to make sure there wasn't a huge drop-off in amplitude after 24 or 48 hours, which is where high-duration single-barrel movements typically fall down on their face. So JLC was using two barrels here for the sake of chronometry as well as a long reserve. Lots of nice little features here, historically inspired, but very much a modern watch. My favorite detail, the syringe tips of the hour and minute hands. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.